Okay, so we left off talking about the Warsaw Pact. So you should pick up in your notes with the Cold War expands. So that's where we're starting. So first thing we're going to talk about is the loss of China. So the guy on the left is Mao Zedong. The guy on the right is Chiang Kai-shek. Mao Zedong is a communist leader, and Chiang Kai-shek is the leader of the nationalists in China. So at this point in China, communism is going to be more popular to the people of China because Chiang Kai-shek is kind of ruthless and corrupt, so he's not very popular. So communists are going to be more popular. But this presents a problem with the United States because, as we know, we are not fans of communism. So we're going to favor the nationalists, even though Chiang Kai-shek isn't that great of a guy. So the U.S. is going to try to keep the peace between these two groups of people. So there's a civil war in China between the communists under Mao Zedong and the nationalists under Chiang Kai-shek. So despite trying to keep the peace and giving $2 million of aid to the nationalists, communism is going to win out in China in 1949. So we have a communist China now. Chiang Kai-shek is going to retreat to Taiwan and establish a democracy that still exists there today, actually. So this is looking like containment is not, we talked about the containment policy, this is looking like containment isn't doing so well. Makes it look like it failed. So the fear of communism is really growing in the United States. And that's going to contribute to our decision to get into the Korean War. So we're going to talk about the Korean War, and then we'll talk about the Vietnam War in class tomorrow because we actually don't need to do that on the screencast. So Korea had been conquered by Japan during World War II, and when Japan lost the war, they were forced to give up their territories to the Allies. So what we have now is Korea is split at that line. You can see in the photo, that's the 38th parallel. So the northern part of, and you can see communist China in the yellow. So the northern part of Korea is communist, occupied by the Soviet Union, and the southern part of Korea, south of the 38th parallel, is going to be occupied by the Allies. So it's going to be democratic. So this is going to create problems. When the U.S. and Soviet troops withdraw from occupying Korea, this happens in 1949, North Korea, so the red part, the communist part, is going to invade South Korea and really want to influence their economy and make it a communistic government. So President Truman is convinced that peacekeeping troops are needed in Korea. So the United Nations are going to send those peacekeeping troops under the direction of none other than General MacArthur. Douglas MacArthur is back, and he is going to fight the spread of communism from North Korea into South Korea. So neither side is going to make significant gains in the war, and we're going to reach a stalemate by 1950. So it's just like nothing's happening. No one's winning, no one's losing. It's like back and forth. So, hey, no, you're fine. Just ignore me. So MacArthur is viewed as a hero because of his work in World War II and because he saved the democratic South Korea from the communist North Korea. But he's not done with that quite yet. So MacArthur is going to ask permission to invade China. So remember, China is communist. So MacArthur wants to invade China because they were helping the North Koreans in the Korean War. So Truman is going to say no to MacArthur's request. China at this point has an alliance with the Soviet Union, and attacking China is just going to make the conflict much, much larger than it already was. And MacArthur, being the stubborn personality that he is, keeps pushing the point and says that Truman and Eisenhower are being too soft on communism. He was kind of overstepping his boundaries. He's kind of getting in their face about these decisions. So remember, Eisenhower's the commander of the Allied forces and will also eventually become president. But he is fired by President Truman. MacArthur's fired by President Truman for insubordination. So the fighting in Korea is going to end by 1953. No formal peace treaty is ever signed. And Korea actually remains divided at the 38th parallel to this day. The communist government's in the north, and the democratic government is in the south. So even though MacArthur was able to save the democratic South Korea from invasion by the communist North Koreans, he is not able to defeat communism in North Korea. North Korea is still communist. So altogether, we still have Korea divided, and 54,000 Americans had died, and $22 billion was spent. So now we see that the Cold War is militarized. That's what that means. So this is when it, even though we didn't have actual fighting between the Soviet Union and the United States, we see these side conflicts that were resulted from our issues with the spread of communism and containment. Okay, so that's all for today. So, short one. Yay.